On January 10th, 2025, the US Supreme Court announced that TikTok would be removed from US app stores in just 9 days. Why? Because China! This led users to do what I would call digital doomsday prepping. Because as the days went on, it started to become exponentially clear to everyone that this was it.
The fate of TikTok now in the hands of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court, with the clock ticking on a US ban a little more than a week away.
A death toll rang for the endless hours of entertainment that it provided. No more TikTok.
No more Fortnite.
On the fateful evening of January 18 at 7:34 p.m. sharp, Americans opened their app to discover this screen, which included an ominous message, a Batman signal, if you will, to Donald Trump. Sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US, unfortunately. That means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. Sadly, he was their last hope.
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please, Donald Trump, please save me.
Ba-boom! TikTok was banned for every American. Unless you're fucking James Charles, apparently.
Hello, rest of the world, it's James. I don't know if you guys can hear me or see me or if this is even gonna work. I think I may have found a loophole while the rest of America is banned. Things are not good over here and I have to make this quick before they get me.
So many people were devastated that their accounts just disappeared like that.
Content creators rallying around the hashtag Farewell TikTok.
But I'll tell you who wasn't. British people and Canadians. They were like, thank fuck, those people are gone.
Wait, why am I low-key glad that Americans are gone?
Strike the pose. But anyways, Trump had heard their cry for help, and in a wild turn of events, only 14 hours later, Donald had come to save brain rot America with a message that read, "Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok."
On behalf of everyone at TikTok and all our users across the country, I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available.
And you know, people are giving Trump the W for this. Like, there is actually a sweeping wave of gratitude for this guy. On account of his Republican stands, of course. Mood because Trump saved TikTok like the king he has. Can someone please answer this question with a serious face? How is this royal? We used to have kings and queens who looked like this, okay? And yeah, sure, maybe they were rubbing cancerous powders on their face, but damn, boy did they look better. How can y'all not love this man? I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't love politicians. Maybe it's because they're not pop stars, okay? I paid dollars out of my own pocket to go to a concert, to see Billie Eilish, okay? Would I pay money to see this man in person? You couldn't pay me to look at an image of this man more than 20 seconds. If you actually love a politician, and I'm saying any, okay, I need you to reevaluate, okay? But you know, it's not even just the Trump stands that are backing this up. There's also a ton of liberal people who are just kind of like, "F Trump, but MAGA, I guess?" But here's the little twist. Trump has campaigned for the banning of TikTok from the jump.
You know, I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok.
I'm talking from 2020, okay? The year of the Tiger King. It's been that long. Only to conveniently swoop in like a hero, saving it, coincidentally, the afternoon before his inauguration.
And as of today, TikTok is back.
Humana, 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 humana. He simply rewrote history, Jeffree Star style. Me when I take credit for fixing the problem that I created. But this has all understandably led people to speculate that maybe this wasn't some some brain blast moment for him. Oh no. In fact, he's caused the US to be continually embarrassed in the presence of all TikTok representatives, including Mr. TikTok himself, CEO Mr. Chu.
The only face data that you will get, that we collect, is when you use the filters to have, say, sunglasses on your face, we need to know where your eyes are.
Why do you need to know what the eyes are if you're not seeing if they're dilated?
And you may even recall one of these embarrassing moments from this 2023 court interaction that has been memed up the wazoo, which allowed this dude, Tom Cotton, to give the most xenophobic line of questioning known to man.
Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again, I'm Singaporean.
Are you a Chinese spy with a twist of lemon? No. But notice how you know what China is. Yes. Exactly what I thought. And suddenly, out of nowhere, Trump is like, Singaporeans, they're the best Singaporeans. I love Singaporeans.
Senator, I'm Singaporean.
And you know what? Not to sound like a tinfoil hatter, but I'm inclined to perhaps agree. This is literally just Jeffree Star, except he's ugly and doesn't know how to apply a spray tan, nor how to attach a wig to his skull. But a theory that I don't see enough people talking about is how Trump might be a doom scroller himself. Like, maybe he logged in and saw a TikTok of Tom Cotton and said, oh my god, I could just kiss him.
Not with a lot of enjoyment, but that's okay.
And all of this caused a huge commotion because TikTok is our blessed home of the overconsumption, the brain rot, and the Charlie D'Amelio. Where would society have been without this? Oh, or this. Oh my god.
Simply taking a seat. If you're not paying attention, you start looking around and drop it. That's gonna take away from your first impression. People around you not gonna take you seriously. Take a seat and make it look effortless, like an expert, not like a dog that's trying to take a dump.
Maybe these aren't good examples. Now look, I personally wouldn't touch this app with a 10-foot pole because it makes me want to kill myself. But TikTok's influence over the whole world cannot be understated. I mean, the majority of adults under the age 30 use it. Plus, 1 out of every 5 Gen Zers grandparents who somehow figured out how to make a TikTok account. But let's pause for a moment because as you all know, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And for some of y'all, that means flowers, chocolates, ridiculously large teddy bears that are gonna end up in a landfill. Whilst for others, it means binge watching RuPaul's Drag Race for 9 hours in your pajamas. Both of which are perfectly fine. But whether you're in a relationship or flying solo, you probably have some Valentine's Day needs, if you know what I'm saying. A little spice. And luckily, Lelo's got you covered with high quality, luxurious pleasure products crafted to stimulate your senses, spark your wildest desires, and endless exploration. The world is your oyster. Now, the toy that Lelo sent me this month is called the Enigma Double Sonic. Ooh la la. And this thing is super cool. I mean, just look at it. The material is super high quality. It's silky smooth, and it looks like some freaking alien technology. But make no mistake, the Enigma Double Sonic is not your standard vibrator. It's a new technology that uses Deep Sonic, which offers a brand new way to explore your A-spot. And you might be asking, Nikki, what the hell is an A-spot? Listen, I was just as confused as as you are. But the A spot is actually a super cool, sensitive area that is slightly behind the G spot. And for a lack of better word, it is very hard to reach. So most femmes have not felt the life-changing sensation that is the A spot. Fortunately though, this has a supersonic tip and insertable tail. Oh, and if you're having a long distance Valentine's Day, don't panic, because not only does Lelo offer these unique luxury products, they've also developed the Love Bridge app, which allows you and a partner to control each other's Lelo toys remotely with a private chat room. It's just like FaceTime, but spicier. And it's super easy. Just connect your toy to the app, set up your private chat room, and now control how you and your partner experience the toys, no matter how far away you are. So this Valentine's Day, ditch the ordinary and say yes to self-love. Because whether you're getting hot and heavy with that special someone or pleasuring yourself, you deserve it. So head over to Lelo now and enjoy up to 50% off of their V-Day sale. And if you use the code Nikki15, you get an additional 15% off. That's right, you can stack them. Unheard of, I know. Thank you, Lelo, for sponsoring me, and now back to the video. Anyways though, the mass excommunication from TikTok had caused content creators, 7 million small businesses, and its entire user base of 170 million people to become outraged.
I'm just feeling really sad. I really love this app.
Why would they take this app from the girls? This app truly saved me.
But then, in a beautiful, ironic twist of events, banning TikTok that the US government feared the most for being Chinese caused an insane domino effect. Its users fled to a somehow even more Chinese app called Redote.
On Monday, Redote became the most downloaded app on Apple's App Store in the US by users who call themselves TikTok refugees.
Hello, a big welcome for my refugee friends.
Hey friends from TikTok, I am Abe from China, and I just want to say it's so amazing to have you here.
Suddenly, to the US government's great horror, Redote had become the most downloaded app in America. Redote was the home for TikTok refugees who were now seeking community amongst a crowd of millions of Chinese users. But it was not just an app replacement. It served as an act of protest. But wait, how did we end up in this crazy ass timeline? Well, it all started with a little app called Musical.ly, an app that is now almost exclusively associated with this video. And funnily enough, hey, fun fact, Musical.ly was originally intended to be an educational kids app that was supposed to host videos from 15 seconds to 1 minute about stuff like homework. But that idea quickly flopped due to being a concept that would only work on opposite day. Mom, can I please go on the education app? I want to see homework. No, honey, and please finish your french fries. Can I have spinach instead? No! Both Musical.ly and the incredibly stupid, albeit iconic, American app, Vine, actually rose to stardom at the exact same time and then ultimately died the same death in 2017. And while both of them had pioneered more short-form content, Vine was truly the one who crashed and burned, while Musical.ly quickly evolved and adapted into something much more innovative, changing the world for better and definitely for worse. Because on November 10th, 2017, ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns TikTok, would acquire Musical.ly for $1 billion. Billion with the B. Then just 1 year later, ByteDance combined Musical.ly's 100 million users into their new app, TikTok, branding it all under the same name. And while the TikTok ban has since been delayed, the fate of its existence hangs entirely entirely in the balance of an ultimatum. It must be sold to an American company or get clapped. Yes, they wrote that on the paper. I saw it. And all of this has caused people to beg the question, should TikTok be banned? There are two very interesting sides to this argument, and I will make it very clear where I stand in a moment. In fact, if you look in the chapters, you'll already know, okay? Don't look! I told you not to. But let's talk about the... Now, there are some valid reasons for people to want TikTok obliterated from the face of the earth, starting with shortened attention spans. You know, it's that damn phone. TikTok was the pioneer of doom scrolling. Like, they 100% formulated the most addicting algorithm that has ever existed. For f***'s sake, there's even an auto scroll feature. It's gotten to the point where we can't even find the energy to swipe to the next one. And a very, very unfortunate side effect of TikTok's success is the domino effect it's had on every other social media platform. As I'm sure you've noticed, they're all trying to create their own bootleg TikTok formula. Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Twitter Shorts, whatever the hell is going on Facebook. Shit, even Spotify has a weird vertical swipe feed. And by the way, might I add, TikTok's algorithm is proprietary, and that explains why everyone else's TikTokification sucks. It's like if Plankton tried to make a Krabby Patty. Like, he simply does not know how to do it. This is all to say that clearly CEOs have been devouring up and wolfing down any chance they can to rob us of our attention span with ass overstimulating dopamine dumping content.
A week ago my daughter told me it was because I introduced a girl to my son while he was in a situationship with the girl.
I mean, this is affecting all aspects of our lives, more than maybe even we know. Because another fun, silly little side effect of this is that streaming services like Netflix have noticed how much we're addicted to watching Reels and TikToks, and are now trying to accommodate subscribers that they assume are scrolling on their phone by dumbing down their content as much as possible, just so that you still know what's going on while you're watching Family Guy with soap cutting underneath.
Keep you from certain death, and this is how you repay him?
And we as a society, we live in a society, have reacted to this in the most nihilistic way imaginable. We've accepted that we're fried as hell and have already gone through each stage of grief about our brain cells. There was the denial phase, there was the anger phase, and now we are 100% at the depression and acceptance phase.
Finally, a movie. Much better.
How have I assessed this? Well, besides being incredibly smart and very cool, I have noticed a lot of memes about it. So trust me, like, we actively acknowledge that we have brain rot, but are simultaneously doing nothing to stop it. But let's move on to TikTok shop and don't walk, running by this culture has led a lot of people to have ad fatigue, meaning everything feels like an advertisement all the time.
Run, do not walk. The beach is on sale for $49 in the TikTok shop. Run, do not walk. Run, do not walk. Run, do not walk.
Try not to get scared. Scariest stories. I was on TikTok shop, the TikTok Shops app. When out of the corner of my eye, I saw something's, Larry. But it was not Larry's. It was the creature. The creature whispered, "Buy this Pinar machine," she said. The creature shouted loudly at me, "Run! Don't walk! Fuck."
And every single day, there's something new and trendy to buy.
TikTok made me buy it. Here's something else that TikTok made me buy. The Everest Fitness G Revolve. Pull it out like a lawnmower. The faster you spin this, the harder it gets.
And this has caused the birth of the micro trend, which has notoriously caused like 1 billion pounds of clothes to go straight down the shitter, straight to the landmine. And one of the first examples that comes to my mind is this stupid ass green dress. My God. The earth is dying over stuff like this. And another sad result of this is that it's causing Gen Z to not have an easily definable style for its decade. When you look at the aesthetics of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, these are all iconic and obviously lasted long enough to be part of pop culture history.
If you were to mention a certain decade, like the 90s, you might picture something like this, or Princess Diana's iconic fashion. However, now we are seeing trends circulate at such a rapid speed, we're seeing the death of this 20-year trend cycle.
This is such an egregious and perfect example because 2 weeks after this went viral, it began looking outdated and too much like it was from TikTok. It became cringe to own it and wear it in public. To quote this Input article by Maya Ernest, when so many people have an opinion, it's hard to figure out what your own is. Do you really like that viral top? Or do you just like it because everyone else does? Do you hate it because everyone else does? With aesthetics revolving around distinct statement pieces, each of which is labeled as a must-have, you can afford to buy into the ever-changing look. And on TikTok, you're just as likely to come across a video praising a specific piece as another explaining why it's out of style. This actually goes hand in hand with another topic that I've been considering making a video on, and that is the death of originality. It just seems that we are way too malleable to changing because of what other people decide is cringe without even thinking for ourselves. Like, it's absurdly frustrating. But when it comes to overconsumption on TikTok, there is another prominent subgenre, and that is the simple glorification of all that's excessive. I'm talking about the girlies who have 100 bottles of soap.
Today, my husband will be choosing my shower routine. Okay, now he's gonna choose some body wash for me. Now he's gonna pick my lotion.
Their drawers filled with 50 skincare products that are probably eroding their beautiful skin into a McRib.
I rewatched this video several times to see how many products they were using, and I counted 17 products.
And also, pause. I'm sorry, can I say something really quick and no one gets mad? I fucking hate when influencers tap products like this. I know I'm probably in the minority here. I know I'm probably being annoying, but it had to be said. Whatever. To add to that, there's girlies with 100 makeup sponges. And who could forget the people who fight to death at Target for Stanley Cups? And look, okay, let's reel it back in. A lot of us are miserable as hell. America has the most expensive healthcare system in the world. Our rent is astronomically high. And most of us are never gonna own a house in our lifetime, which makes tipping your landlord real easy, real cool, and lovable.
All right, thanks for paying your rent this month. Go ahead and sign here. It's just gonna ask you a couple of questions.
America. But this is all to say, of course you want to buy something. We need dopamine. We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Like, I get some good ass Instagram ads sometimes. Holy shit. But buying things on this level, at this scale, when it's items you are not going to use in T-1 day, isn't just hurting me wallet. It's not good for our mental health either. Harmful beauty standards. I won't harp on this one too much because I feel like it's the most obvious of the bunch. Point blank, there is an impossible beauty standard that is set by TikTok, and a large percentage of that comes from the app's ultra realistic filters.
You guys, this is the problem. Look. You can't even tell it's a filter anymore.
This filter is terrifying, like dystopian level terrifying.
Like, if you've been on TikTok for T-1 week, you've probably noticed people using these filters as some kind of beauty tests.
This filter shows you how symmetrical your face is.
So for example, if you have a beauty mark in the center of your face, like say right between your eyebrows, that would actually be symmetrical technically, but less attractive than if it was off-center.
There's this filter that's going around showing you what you would look like with lip filler, with no makeup on, just juicy lips. Everyone's deciding whether or not they're gonna get lip filler because of it. So let's try it out. All right, ready?
This filter tells you if your face is uneven. This filter tells you if your eyes are too close together. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not exactly breaking any new ground by saying those things are not good for you to think about. But regardless if you're aware of this toxicity or not, you still find yourself thinking about these things. Like, oh, is that little piece of skin between my nose and my lips too long? Am I ugly? Genuinely, none of that translates to real life. I see so many, air quotes, unconventionally attractive people that are in happy relationships, pulling off iconic makeup looks and stealing the spotlight. If we could all just accept that nobody on the internet looks the way they look in real life, then we can move on and actually have a good time with our lives, okay? This coming from the person who looks at herself in the mirror every day and goes, ugh. And if you'd like me to yap more about that in a separate video, let me know. Anyways, last but not least, a more ambiguous and gray issue lies in the fact that a vast amount of people rely on TikTok as a primary source of information, and that is definitely a double-edged sword. Quote, TikTok users aren't just kids mindlessly scrolling through dance videos. Roughly 1/3 of Americans aged 18 through 29 regularly get their news from TikTok. The Pew Research Center found in a late 2023 survey, nearly half of all TikTok users say they regularly get news from the app, a higher percentage than any other social media platform aside from Twitter. But obviously, getting information from TikTok can oftentimes be risky because it leads to unfactual things going around and mob mentality. And since most videos condense that information into 60 seconds or less, which respectfully is not enough time to properly explain much of anything, let alone complex or serious topics. And a subgenre of this that I've noticed on the app is really terrible life advice. For example, self-proclaimed relationship experts. Like, there are so many random ass people on TikTok who have zero experience or authority to give you any sort of advice, but they just say things with so much confidence that it becomes easy to accept whatever they're saying as true. Like in this video, 5 signs that he's cheating on you. Listen to this person's first example.
First thing is that they start taking unusual interest in their physical appearance. So if they didn't work out before, they like start working out or wearing cologne or something that you've literally never noticed them do, and then now all of a sudden they care.
Good to know that working out equals cheating. Look, I'm not trying to say that this has never happened in the history of ever, that a guy just started working out and it was literally to cheat, okay? But to say that just exercising, beginning to try to get healthier in general is a sign of cheating is pretty crazy, but not as crazy as this next example.
They also almost always upgrade their underwear. Now this might seem weird, and it's especially hurtful for the women who are the ones like buying their underwear and socks and things like that. But when someone's cheating, they always want their underwear to be like primo.
But definitely believe her because she says she knows this to be true.
I know that these are true.
Hey, what are you doing?
Buying underwear?
That's exactly what I thought.
What are you doing?
Taking pictures of you so I could remember the day I busted you. And I'm definitely not just picking on this one creator. It is a much larger problem.
Bro, if your girl is going out with friends, bro, you really got to look at yourself, because you just got played, my friend.
There's all these videos that are like, these are the signs that she's a narcissist, that he's a narcissist, that she's ran through that. You guys, would it kill you? Oh, I'm about to say something crazy. To talk to your partner and ask them the questions that you want to hear the answer to, and then from that point decide if you want to be together or not. Just a suggestion. I know, that's crazy, right? And the heaps of bad relationship advice that exist on TikTok have not entirely gone unnoticed. And I really think a reason for as to why not very many people bring this issue up is that a lot of TikTok users might not even realize that these people might be wrong. When people scroll and they start watching a video, I don't think a lot of people pause and say, wait, this is a random ass person on the internet who knows nothing about my life, so I probably shouldn't apply whatever they're saying to myself. And you can really see this happen in real time. If you look in the comments of any of these TikToks, there'll be like an insane amount of comments that are just going, yep, this is 100% true. And in turn, this leads to a bunch of relationship anxiety. Which brings me to my next point. These developing insecurities make people think that they have to test their partner. One of the relationship tests that I came across was called the bird test.
Apparently a lot of people don't know what the bird test is, which I'm sure there's like a better name for it, but that's wild to me because I live and die by the fucking bird test, okay? Because it never fails. And if you don't know what the bird test is, it's like a test to gauge like whether or not a relationship will be successful. But I always do this with like friends, family members, literally anyone that I meet. If they pass the bird test, I tell them so fast. I meet this girl, we start becoming like newer friends, and we go to Starbucks one day. We're sitting at this table at Starbucks and I'm looking out the window and I see a woodpecker in a tree and I'm like, holy shit, there's a woodpecker in that tree. This girl whips around so fast, she's like, where? I kid you not, for the next 10 minutes, the two of us stared out the Starbucks window just watching this woodpecker fucking peck away at this tree while we Googled random facts about woodpeckers, okay? Now the bird test states that if you're with someone, whoever you're gonna do the test with, if you say something that could be deemed like insignificant and your partner responds with like genuine curiosity, like what woodpecker, where? That's a really good sign that your relationship will last a long time. But if they like blow you off, they don't acknowledge you and they're just like, oh cool, like a woodpecker, that's a really bad sign.
So to me, there are a lot of obvious flaws with this type of testing. Number one is like, what if your partner is having an off day? They're not focusing, okay? They got other stuff going on. Does this make them a bad partner if they don't give you this huge reaction that you're looking for? Okay, having an off day, focusing on something else, accidentally not listening to what you said. Like, all of these things are extremely human to kind of mess up on. So to act like this is an actual significant test that everyone is doing creates this weird sensation, this weird domino effect of like, oh, well, you know, everyone's doing it and it works, you know, according to this chick and all these comments. So why don't I go ahead and try that out and let it determine the fate of my romantic interests?
What do you say if you match with someone on a dating app and they ask you the dreaded question of what are you looking for? Before I tell you the perfect response to this, let's go over what you should never say. Never say I'm looking for something serious or I'm looking for a relationship, because subconsciously he's going to interpret it as you're looking for a relationship with him. Instead, this is the line you're going to use because it's flirtier and still vague. Simply say, I'm looking for a reason to delete this.
Okay, got it. Do not tell people your intentions. Being transparent, that is an activity of the yesteryears, buddy. Time to catch up. But much more seriously, there are TikTok's self-diagnosed health experts. During 2020, there were users telling people to use hydrochloroquine, sorry, very hard word to say, as a treatment for COVID, saying this can cure anything. When doctors, actual doctors, had already told the public that they had considered this, tested it, and not only did it not work, it caused severe heart conditions in many people that it was tested on. This is an article from the literal Mayo Clinic, by the way, okay? Do not trust the Mayo Clinic less than random TikToker number 5.
HCQ made it home 4 grapefruits, 4 lemons, and 4 oranges.
And then there's the political misinformation. For example, TikTok let MAGA hatters run the whole stop the count, stolen election theory. Stop the count! Stop the count! as well as a bunch of other QAnon theories that I'm not even gonna explain. I'm not even gonna get into QAnon. Look that up on your own time. Anyways, my point is that TikTok creators often pack their content like sardines. They create a narrative, they leave out important information, then people get anxiety, they have a personality crisis, they start rethinking their whole entire life, etc. And I'm not saying no one has ever benefited from any advice given on TikTok, okay? Please don't jump down my throat, okay? I'm just saying that when you scroll to a new person who is talking on TikTok, remember that this is just another random person that has probably done like almost no research on whatever they're talking about. You do not know their credibility and they do not know your life. In contrast, YouTube's content creators, at least most of the time, are expected to do thorough research on whatever it is they're talking about. And long format videos allow for a deeper explanation. And I'm not trying to say this never happens on YouTube or discredit TikTokers that actually take a lot of time to do research. But I feel like at least in the commentary space, I found that creators in this space are held accountable when they spread harmful information. But hey, that's also my observation. Feel free to disagree and make your own. But Nikki, wait. I thought you said that this area was gray. Yup. It is. The reality is that short form videos, doom scrolling, and brain rot are all here to stay. You can't undo what has already been done. And there are most definitely people who use TikTok to spread messages that are impactful and oh so important. And a really good example of this is the Israel-Palestine conflict. The G word, don't censor me, YouTube, but TikTok was a great place where many people were able to interact with Palestinian creators, show what's really happening over there and their living conditions.
This is how we make the electricity work in Gaza. First, we disconnect a car battery from a car, and then we take a solar panel and place it so it's directly facing the sun. Once there's enough charge, we plug in a device known as a UPS computer, and this device gives us regulated electricity.
The violence and ultimately get people to be on the right side of history, give sympathy to these human beings. Because of TikTok, much more people were able to give humanity and respect to people and a culture that is often perceived very negatively. And this is exactly why politicians felt that TikTok was radicalizing young teens, something I find really interesting and flabbergasting. Because exactly how is not wanting people to radical. But even besides this, there are impactful, informative TikToks that apply to other social movements like gender equality, LGBTQ rights, climate change, etc., etc.
Okay.
So, that's one of the reasons that, despite everything I just said, I am about to fight tooth and nail for TikTok. Yep, the app that I personally hate with a passion. Point blank, short form content, TikTok, Reels, everything in between has done a net negative to our brains. And I don't think anyone is arguing that it hasn't. But again, I reiterate, it's too late. Short form content isn't going anywhere. Every single social media platform either has or will be applying this formula to their app. So with all that said, I sincerely believe that we as a country need to support TikTok's existence and resist the government's urge to convince you that it's okay to delete it. And even if you think it should be banned, I really do hope that you'll give my research a chance to potentially change your mind. Okay, TikTok hater to TikTok hater, I speak to you. What are the real reasons that the government wants to ban TikTok? Of course, earlier I said China, but what does that really mean? We've accused TikTok of being a national security threat. This, obviously, as you know by now, means that they think the Chinese government is using TikTok to covertly spy on Americans, and not just that, but to influence the US population public with Chinese propaganda.
And as a member of Congress, I can tell you that TikTok is a Chinese Trojan horse used to steal Americans' data.
A Chinese Trojan horse filled with posters of Xi Jinping, if you'll indulge me. I don't know about you, but I, nor anyone I know, has ever gotten Chinese propaganda on their FYP. Like, I don't know where the government expects these subliminal messages to occur. Like, are they appearing during people's weekly brain rot? Or you know what? Maybe they're going for the fashion girlies. Fellas, is it Chinese if a girl wants to do the clean girl aesthetic or the mob wife aesthetic? Also, if they're breaching your watch history, then rest in peace, because they're gonna see some fuck shit completely unrelated to China. Regardless though, this fear is being so amplified to the public that one Republican representative went as far as to say this.
Think about it like a Chinese spy balloon right in your phone.
But for all those big words like spy balloon and national security threat and all this tea that the US is stirring up, you'd think they had some pretty serious evidence to back it up. I mean, right? Nah. Not really. They just keep saying it's classified. Seriously though, even US Congress members who have reviewed this classified evidence said that it was very vague and censored. Like, bro, if Congress doesn't even understand that shit, what hope do we have? Quote, even in classified sessions, members of Congress say that the TikTok threat has only been described in the vaguest of terms. There is no smoking gun, no clear-cut case of the Chinese government's exploiting the app to, say, influence an election or track the movement of key intelligence targets. It was like they were being locked in a closet with Sir Isaac Newton. Like, what the f is he talking about? Please, someone explain or let me out. But funnily enough, soon after this, TikTok actually ended up suing the US government. Yes, the entire US government as a being. This happened back in May of 2023, for which they claimed that the US government was violating the First Amendment, because even they weren't given any actual evidence showing that they were leaking our information to China. Like, imagine being sued or threatened to leave the country, but no one will actually tell you why. Technically, that is illegal. However, the government can do whatever they want. I guess. They're the government. Now, bear with me, because this is about to get real governmental, but it is really important that you know this stuff, chat, so listen up. The government findings that TikTok was allowed to review were heavily redacted, and by that I mean up to 30%. Like, if this were a test, the US government would have got a C-, for shame. And to make matters worse, when TikTok's lawyers argued that the US Justice Department should hire a special master, which by the way is a federal court judge, to act as a middleman and sift through this classified, air quotes, evidence, the Supreme Court was like, no, f that, f the special master. And this is a big deal because it would have provided TikTok the opportunity to have an unbiased third-party representative to review and basically explain things to the judge. Like, hey, so this is what this means, because apparently all judges are not qualified to look at this sort of thing. Like, they're not gonna know all this terminology, let alone when 30% of it is redacted. Therefore, there's nothing preventing the judge from being like, what does this even mean? This is truly a confusing situation for everyone. But in any case, the Supreme Court upheld the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. So that is what resulted in TikTok either having to sell the app to a US company or faced with being kicked from the server. And hilariously, since this ban has been set in motion these past few months, I've seen so many comments from people who are like, I'm too poor to give a f about what's happening with my data. To which I'm gonna say, Yeah, literally, why should anyone care what happens to their data if they're not even making livable wages? Like, what would they have to lose? And which, by the way, that's really f***ed up that most people feel that way. Maybe if you wanted people to care about this, you would treat them a little better. Here are just a few quotes from TikTok users. Yes, the thought has occurred to me that China is stealing our information, but that does not bother me because I'm pretty sure my government has more access to information about me than China. So no, the Chinese getting a hold of our information has not really been a concern of mine. Reno Prezio, a 45-year-old TikToker user in San Diego, said he's not worried about any data breaches either. You can spy on me. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. I'm Joe Schmo. In fact, if anything, people are gonna miss their Chinese spy, okay? They're gonna miss a real ass bee who was there for them during their lowest times.
Hello guys, this is your Chinese spy speaking. I want to post this video before it's too late. I guess we are not going to see each other again in the future. That's why I have something to say. It is a great honor to spy on you for the last few years. I wish you all have a great life in the future. Now is something personal. Laura from California. You shouldn't drink that much Coca-Cola. It is bad for your health. And also Peter from New York. Your mama loves you. You shouldn't treat her like that, okay?
No, Chinese spy, stay. He wasn't just a spy. He was family. I'm going to miss my Chinese spy who was watching me through my phone. XOXO, I will miss you. But you know what makes this really, really annoying is that the people sacrificing your alleged Chinese spy probably don't even give a damn about your data at all. Case in point, there's this schmo called Mike Gallagher who was one of the people who pushed hardest for this TikTok ban. Yet he has now resigned and is now joining an American surveillance firm, which is totally different from Chinese surveillance because our surveillance has zero swag. China spies from here, okay? The US spies from here. Anyways, another one of the most recent tools that the United States has been using to collect Americans' data is probably, unsurprisingly, AI. Because Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, has recently come out and stated that they collect and share our data to their AI llama, whatever that is. But get this, the AI llama is spreading that info with private agencies and contractors. And what I mean by that is that any random old company can win the RFP for all of our information. Here's a boring big girl definition for you, okay? Bear with me. An RFP is a formal business document that organizations use to solicit bids from potential vendors for a specific product or service. It is a structured procurement process that helps companies objectively evaluate and select the most suitable vendor for their project needs. So, therefore, Meta is allowing literally anyone, like a company that makes nuclear bolts for missiles or something, could be reviewing your grandma's Facebook search history right now at this very instance. Which, by the way, this is a cherry on top, of course. Doing this is against Meta's own privacy policy. But just to make you feel better about all this, they're not calling it a violation, they're calling it an exception. Quote, Meta's move is an exception to its acceptable use policy, which forbade the use of the company's AI software, the AI fucking llama, to use all that shit for military warfare, nuclear industries, or other purposes. You're telling me that the shit that I like on Instagram or talk about in private messages is being used for warfare? But remember, okay, it's not a violation, it's an exception. In other words, Mark Zuckerberg wants to eat your data. And are you really gonna let him starve? He's so hungry. Oh yeah, and while we're still talking about Mark, the Mark Zuckerberg situation is crazy. Get this, listen up. He literally got exposed for trying to fearmonger against TikTok. In 2022, Meta began paying a Republican consulting firm called targeted victory to basically start a smear campaign by creating fake TikTok challenges out of their tiny butthole and spreading rumors about them all over social media and local news. In October, Targeted Victory worked to spread rumors of the Slap a Teacher TikTok challenge in local news. This is so funny. In reality, no such challenge existed on TikTok. The rumor started on Facebook. And while they're spreading this propaganda about slapping teachers, Meta and Targeted Victory work to get positive messaging about Facebook into local newspapers, radio segments, and TV broadcasts. Speaking glowingly of, for instance, supporting Black-owned businesses. Oh yay, you did the bare minimum. That's cool. Anyways though, this all happened conveniently after a whistleblower exposed that teens were spending 2 to 3 times the amount on TikTok than Instagram. So all of a sudden, completely unrelated, they want to talk shit about TikTok. Has nothing to do with it. And you know what? I can't even blame teens for spending less time on Instagram. Not when Mark Zuckerberg has been dressing like a F-boy like this. The stocks are plummeting, Mark. Please stop. Another one of the concerns that politicians and people like Mark like to bring up as well is that the messages that people send to each other on TikTok are not private. To which I have to say, newsflash, there's another app that does that is perfectly American, which is in no danger of being banned, nor is it being questioned for as to why it does that. And there's probably many more, but guess what? I'm not gonna do more research on that because I've been talking about this for a while. Let's talk about how all these data stealing shenanigans are really just the tip of the iceberg in America. There is some seriously deep doo-doo going on behind the scenes in this country that I can't even fully get into for fear of being shadow banned or disappearing off the planet mysteriously. But let's just say, in June of 2013, hypothetically, this happened in Minecraft, of course, a whistleblower, we'll call him Steve, leaked classified information about the US government saying that it is allegedly collecting all of its US citizens' data from every business. This means everything. Facebook, Google, Apple, Cool Math Games. They are all required to allow the National Security Agency to collect and surveillance all user data. Why is this hypothetically a big deal? Well, that means your text messages, your phone calls, search history, and everything, despite any sort of privacy policy you might be agreeing to. Allegedly, they are collecting up all of those things about you, slurping them up like a dog on a Sunday afternoon. Cold bowl of water outside, they're so satisfied with it. And also, insanely, okay? And listen to this, allegedly, in Minecraft, the US government itself steals SMS data and spies on Chinese phones. So, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse and keep saying that the government is hypocritical, but like, if the shoe fits, and also, remember, none of what I just said is real, especially not that last Chinese thing. For my sake, it occurred in Roblox. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down, I do not believe the US government gives a flying fish about our data. And yes, there is a fish that can fly. I looked it up just now. What do you make of that? So what about the whole Chinese propaganda thing? Are the Chinese really doing that? Because if they are, why I oughta? Because say what you will about America, we don't push propaganda to our citizens. Just kidding. The government infiltrates our media all the time. I don't know, you guys, it's giving Chinese. Starting with the gaming industry, you know, the gamers, the chicken wing eaters, please rise. Because you are worth a lot of money. $350 million actually. And the Xbox game with the most monthly active users is none other than Call of Duty. It also just so happens to have a reputation reputation for glorifying the US military. And as you can imagine, the target audience for this game is primarily boys and very, very young men, which might even be an understatement. Because when I looked up what ages play Call of Duty, I found this Reddit thread where multiple users unironically said that they began playing as early as 7 years old, meaning that kids at their most susceptible, vulnerable ages have been fully immersing themselves into artificial war for years. And what's really interesting is that Call of Duty has even rewritten history to make Americans look like heroes in several of their campaigns. A giant glaring example of that is the US's involvement in the Iraq War, which I do not have time to talk about right now. Anyways though, the US didn't even have to pay Call of Duty to do any of that. Oh boy, they did try. Because in 2022, the US Army had been working on a deal with Activision to directly promote recruitment into the game. And not just that, okay, it gets more and more insidious. They planned to sponsor professional esports teams, streamers, and begin a heavy-handed advertising campaign on YouTube and Twitch. Again, attacking that very, very young boy demographic once again. And if you're like 8 years old, if you're like a teenager, you might be like, hell yeah, this looks cool. Anyways though, this whole plan later fell through due to accusations of sexual harassment at Activision, which is interesting to me because I'm pretty sure the military has those accusations too, but I digress. But Activision aside, the US military also once created a whole-ass Call of Duty ripoff game called America's Army Special Forces Overmatch.
Alright, go through the door. Go. Alright, to the left.
You look like you're really into this. You guys want a real challenge?
As a soldier in the United States Army.
Which was, I can hardly even call it a game, purely designed for recruitment. Again, trying to get those 8-year-olds ready to fire guns. Which, by the way, I couldn't find any information for whether or not this game was actually good. I was just really curious. But I can't imagine a child playing that shit. What those boys actually deserved and needed at the time was the Rufus Nacho game. But to quote this article by The Nation, they said something that really hit me right here. Like, it's hardly an exaggeration to say that today's global gaming colossus is the offspring of the Pentagon. By some measures, the nearly $350 billion gaming industry is one of the Defense Department's most significant innovations since the end of the Cold War. This shit makes me fully go into like Joker mode, like, we're all puppets on a string, let me go, we're all in a prison. But in reality, that's really scratching the surface because there's just so many areas where the government interferes. A very honorable mention being American movies. For example, movies like Top Gun, Silence of the Lambs, The Green Berets. These are all serving to glorify our military in one way or the other. Oh yeah, not to mention fucking Transformers. They can't even keep their grubby little paws off of a movie about children's toys. They literally have no dignity. Also, the third movie in the Transformers franchise features a scene with robot nuts. That's neither here nor there, but I had to tell someone about it. Anyways though, in recent years, the feds have been becoming more and more desperate to get those recruiting numbers up. And you know why? It's because Gen Z is like, all that, okay? Gen Z has single-handedly caused support for the military to go down a whopping 10%. And so, in order to try to like win back our attention, the military has been attempting to accumulate clout on social media. The Pentagon literally approved funds to work with Mr. Beast, Kelly Clarkson, and Guy Fieri so that they could alter their their content to push a more military positive narrative. Also, can I just say, Mr. Beast, I understand, but since when does Guy Fieri have this much fucking sway with the youth? Like, hey kids, check out my new hip show. It's called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Psyops. How were they planning to enact this? I'm glad you asked. The plan was to get these celebrities to sign PAAs, which stands for Production Assistance Agreements, which basically allows the government to edit any of their scripts and change the narrative of their content if they feel it is not patriotic enough. So let's get this straight. I haven't seen any TikTok and thought to myself, oh, yeah, dude, I'm gonna go support the Chinese Communist Party. Like, there's no significant proof that they are pushing Chinese propaganda on TikTok, but it's okay that we have all this stuff in American media? Propaganda when it's American? Yay! So the US has also accused TikTok of censoring any content criticizing the Chinese government. And is that true? Yes, at least a little bit. There is circumstantial evidence that TikTok is censoring topics that make the Chinese government look like shit. A major example of this is the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest. Quick history lesson, if you will, was a huge protest led by students in Beijing. And by huge, I mean there were up to 1 million citizens that gathered in this square to call for the end of corruption and restore democracy, the freedom of press, freedom of speech, and much, much more. And the Chinese government's response to this peaceful protest was to roll up in huge tanks with weapons to violently clear them all out. And the number of casualties that occurred from this isn't even known because the Chinese government won't even acknowledge it, although it's speculated to be somewhere near 10,000. This is literally so bad to the point where if you were to look up Tiananmen Square protest in China, nothing comes up. Blank.
Using indirect censorship, Chinese censors can alter the results that will come up in online searches to steer users away from material they deem sensitive. In this case, if I look at the term tank man, you'll see here the results that show up, but none of them are in reference to the events of 1989. Similarly, if I click on the picture link, that iconic picture we all know doesn't turn up.
My personal side note to this is that there is an extremely famous picture from this protest called Tank Man, which I think most people have seen but do not know the context of. And this dude is so freaking badass. I love historical images. But anyways, another important issue that's being suppressed by the Chinese government is their treatment of the Uyghurs. Now, the Uyghurs are a Turkic Muslim minority, and the CCP is basically trying to ethnically cleanse them and systematically kill them. There is no easy way to put it. Chinese officials have been putting them into what are called re-education camps, which are actually just forced labor camps.
Across the northwestern province of Xinjiang, an estimated 1 million Chinese Muslims have vanished into a vast network of detention centers for what China calls re-education. Lessons in laws and loyalty to the state. Only recently did China admit the camps even existed, the hallmark of an advanced police state in Xinjiang that targets Uyghur Muslims.
Where they're not only overworked, they're being taught to abandon their Muslim beliefs and traditions. The women there are also facing forced sterilization, and it runs a lot deeper than this. But to give you an example of what it's like at one of these camps, here's a quote from the Washington Post. A Washington Post report looked at the plight of just one Uyghur woman who spent more than 2 months in a cell that was so cramped that the woman there had to lie down in shifts. During the day, they recited propaganda slogans, which included praise for Z. It is an atrocious situation that can only really be described, once again, as genocide. And one way that we know this situation is likely being censored on TikTok is, for example, in 2019, there was this 17-year-old girl named Feroza Aziz, and she made a TikTok basically faking out that she was about to teach people how to grow their eyelashes longer, right before abruptly changing the topic to describing the cruel treatment of the Uyghurs via the CCP. Feroza's video ended up going viral, but just a few hours later, her account was suspended. And not only that, her video was temporarily removed, and honestly, probably would have remained removed if not for all the other TikTok users that came out to back her up. Soon after, this led to multiple news sources picking this story up, and eventually, TikTok had to officially apologize for it. TikTok claimed that the reason that her account was suspended was because on a completely separate account, she had been flagged for posting a video that contained an image of Osama bin Laden long before she started talking about all the stuff going on in China. And so I, and anyone else that has a brain, might find their explanation to be a pretty big stretch. Like, you mean to say that coincidentally, that video just so happened to come back and bite her in the ass as soon as she talked about the Uyghurs? This account that she's been active on just so happens to be suspended on this very day. Other studies have also shown that there is a very significant drop in any content related to these topics on TikTok versus every other social media platform. And again, a lot of this evidence is circumstantial, technically, but I'm not here to suck TikTok's or China's. I'm just here with the facts. But needless to say, do not glorify anyone's government, because they're quite literally all corrupt. Unless you're like Sweden, which like maybe shit seems pretty good over there. Life seems pretty damn good. But I digress, okay? The censorship for Chinese citizens is unbelievably bad. Put it this way, they don't even have YouTube. What do they do when they eat? The freaking CCP banned it because they thought it might cause potential political dissent. But anyways, the US government is unsurprisingly guilty of censorship as well. It's not comparable to China, but rest assured, it is pretty damn bad. For example, in November of 2023, Human Rights Watch documented over 1,050 cases of Meta taking down posts on Instagram and Facebook that were in support of Palestine, and of which it was discovered that 1,049 of them were peaceful. It's also important to note that the actual number of accounts that this happened to remains unknown, because Human Rights Watch was still receiving an abundance of messages about this long after they completed their analysis. And oh, it doesn't end there, because in October of 2023, Meta had to officially apologize for inserting the word into Palestinian users' profiles. Here's an example.
So as y'all may know, since it's linked in my profile, this is my Instagram. So a lot of Palestinians, at least that I personally know, have a bio similar to this, if not verbatim this. So Palestinian in Arabic, which that'll be relevant. Palestinian flag, and then this phrase, which is Alhamdulillah, or for my non-Arabic speakers or non-Muslims, it just means praise be to God. And what does Instagram translate it to? Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg deadass did that shit. Can you believe it? Yes, you should at least. But despite all of this, and many Palestinian supporters claiming that their pages had been shadow banned since they began talking about the subject, Instagram still remained one of the top apps with the most content about Palestine. That is, other than TikTok, which was considered to be the app with the least amount of censorship on the subject. And most notably, also has the biggest sway with Gen Z. And American politicians knew that. So they began using the conflict as an excuse to revamp their old grievances with the app, accusing TikTok outright of indoctrinating young people with content. Here's a clip where Anthony Blinken and Mitt Romney say that this was something that the US Justice Department was specifically taking into consideration when it came to the TikTok ban.
A social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok.
Quote, meetings came after weeks of accusations by lawmakers that TikTok was pushing pro-Palestinian videos into its users' For You pages, quietly indoctrinating America's young people. TikTok denied these claims, writing that the hashtag #StandWithIsrael had received 46 million views in the US between October 7th and the 31st, making it 1.5 times more popular than the hashtag #StandWithPalestine, which received 29 million views. Still, a group of mostly Republican Congress members who have long called for the US ban of TikTok used this whole situation to their advantage, saying TikTok is a tool China uses to spread propaganda to Americans, and now it's being used to downplay Hamas's terrorism. And this information that I'm reading comes from a really amazing Vox article written by Rebecca Jennings. And Rebecca says something at the end of this article that I really couldn't agree with more. Quote, to claim that TikTok is intentionally spoon-feeding pro-Palestine videos to young people is to misunderstand what TikTok is, who uses it, and what those people are already more likely to believe. Of TikTok's estimated 150 million US monthly users, about 60% are between the ages of 16 to 24, and another 26% are between 25 and 44. It is an app dominated by young people, and young people happen to sympathize with Palestine. And to piggyback off of that, historically, every progressive social movement has been led by young people. Like, none of these claims that politicians are making about indoctrinating young people are anything new. They literally did this in the 1950s and 60s for the civil rights movement. They did this for protesting Vietnam in the 1970s. Like, they have reused this same lore again and again. It's actually getting boring. Because hey, do you know what else the US government was trying to convince us was communist propaganda? The young people protesting segregation. Quote, information characterizing Martin Luther King as a communist dupe and a moral degenerate was circulated throughout the government and to journalists, church leaders, and others. The FBI was like, this guy, the guy being Martin Luther King. America being like, communism, it's contaminating the young people. It's just kind of a tale as old as time at this point. So just because the government wants you to hate someone or an idea doesn't mean that it's actually bad. You have to consider the facts and the morals and then do the right thing, which in many cases, the government has done the wrong thing. But anyways, you'll never guess what's going on with TikTok now, or maybe you will, because ever since Trump miraculously saved TikTok like a hero, people have noticed that this has been happening. On January 23rd, 1 week ago at this time of me writing the script, there have been multiple articles written showing that TikTok users are now being flagged for commenting Free Palestine, and their comments are just straight up being removed. Here it is happening to someone in real time. people have also noticed that the algorithm feels different. No one really knows what's going on with it right now or who truly even owns TikTok at this point, so I can't really comment on it any further, but I think it should be suspicious that this is suddenly happening. And you know, propaganda this, propaganda that, propaganda at these tits. I also want to mention that there is a little old American app called X, owned by none other than Elon Musk, or Dark Gothic MAGA, I should say.
I'm not just MAGA, I'm Dark Gothic MAGA.
That allows actual Nazi propaganda accounts to flourish under his regime. So there's so much propaganda on that site that you would think the government would be asking, oh, is he Chinese? But you know, let's reel it back in, okay? Let's talk about the digital revolt that I mentioned earlier. Let's talk about So at this point, we've already established that I think banning TikTok is an extremely bad idea. Some might say the only perk to the ban is that James Charles might move to China. And speaking of China, remember earlier when I said that everyone on TikTok packed their virtual bags and went to an even more Chinese app called Redote?
They're showing up in online droves.
Hello, Red Note. Oh my gosh, TikTok refugee here.
TikTok users looking for a new home and finding it here.
This might be better than TikTok.
But what exactly is Redote? Where did this app come from? And why weren't we talking about it before? Well, put on your laughing cap because it's a little humorous. Zhaohongshu, or Little Red Book, has actually been around since June of 2013, which is around the same time that Imagine Dragons released Radioactive. If you could indeed imagine a dragon. But Zhaohongshu began like any other typical social media app. It was based off of user-generated content, which is the norm. And so because there was already so much competition in the social media market in China, the founders of the app, Charlene Mao and Miranda Q, found that they needed a way to make Little Red Book stand out. Because they already had Weibo, okay? That's pretty much Chinese Twitter, and WeChat, which is pretty much Chinese Snapchat from what I understand. And so they ended up tapping into the niche market of rich urban Chinese women. Rich urban Chinese women between the ages of 18 and 35, all of whom had a deep, dark secret, a deep-seated desire. And that mysterious thing was ... to share their love of shopping with the world. How delightful. And so these rich women felt like Weibo, Chinese Twitter, was too public, and they were worried that they would be labeled as materialistic. As a result of this, Redote created a safe space for this large community of women that loved luxury and fashion shopping. Basically, the bimbo app, and I say that lovingly, of course. And so they continued to market Redote solely to women in Beijing and Shanghai, aka they were not thinking about poor people whatsoever, which is freaking effed. However, in 2014, they did show some personal growth. Just like TikTok, they began focusing exclusively on short-form content and broadened their target audience to a wider diversity of people. And since the changes, by 2023, they have reached over 260 million monthly users. And as for why we've never talked about Redote before, to put it simply, it wasn't very accessible to English speakers. And in America, it's a very foreign concept for any of our social media to expose us to other cultures and languages, simply because a lot of owners of apps do not want to do a translation feature, but mostly because our algorithms create a huge borderline deeming what content is unsuitable to recommend to you, which is sad. But since everyone was getting peeved about being booted off of TikTok and would apparently rather burn in hell than use Instagram Reels, or lest we forget, YouTube Shorts, everyone was like, "F the language barrier." Enter just gonna say it. I love Red Note, cause being on here has forced me to have genuinely wholesome interactions with people I can hardly understand.
First of all, the Chinese are so nice. They're so sweet and so welcoming. Like, they're over here teaching us Mandarin. I've made Chinese friends. I'm like, I want to come visit you. I'm like, oh my God. And it's a whole time over there.
And it really makes you think, we're not all that different.
Freaky goon, 变态呆子，变态呆子 freaky goon.
Our memes perfectly align no matter what the language is. And I know it sounds obvious, yes, we're all human beings, we're all alike in many, many ways, but being so separated from the Chinese culture, you know, not knowing any Chinese people, never having spoken to someone who speaks the language, it leaves you with a very limited impression from what pop culture has taught you about that culture. Day one on Red Note, I saw Chinese kids reaching out to Americans to help them with their English homework. With these videos having around 10,000 comments, each of them trying to pitch in and help this complete stranger. What a wonderful thing. And Americans themselves were putting themselves out there, saying, ask me any questions about America, and I can help you with your English homework. The people on Red Note just instantly made the TikTok refugees feel very accepted.
I just downloaded Red Note, and all I can say is that Instagram is gonna go out real sad. And watch this, watch this, watch this. 漂亮女孩在哪里?
I cannot overstate this. The camaraderie that was seen on day freaking one of going to Red Note is incomparable to anything I have ever seen on an American app. We had people that barely understood each other, sending each other pictures of our cats, of our families, sending memes of Plankton when he goes, And this move to Red Note was so big that an article just came out stating that there was a 216% spike on Duolingo for American users learning Chinese Mandarin.
Mandarin phrases for beginners. Welcome, TikTok refugee. 欢迎养狗难民.
And honestly, it's been a really long time since I've ever seen something that has made me feel like, oh yeah, like I'm kind of happy to be an American. Americans are not all weird, unfriendly, nationalistic douchebags with zero respect for other cultures, okay? This was a breath of fresh fucking air. And speaking of Duolingo, I have to mention that they were so on top of it, okay? Say what you want about that cringe freaking bird. He was reaping all of the benefits off of this. Me, because I'd rather move to China and learn Mandarin on Duolingo? Genius. You can say a lot of things about that fucking bird, but they're a genius. But something that spoke to me profoundly and kind of even made me want to tear up is this TikTok I saw of a Chinese user who was explaining that as a kid in China, they have you do this assignment when you go to school called lihua. And basically what that is writing to a foreigner pen pal. This isn't a real person, but you pretend that they are and you kind of learn about their culture.
From the time we start learning English, we were asked to write letters to our foreigner pen pals as lihua. Today is Mother's Day. Assuming you are lihua, please write a letter to American pen pal John about how you will spend this special day with your mom. Tell American pen pal Mike how to stay healthy. Introduce Teacher's Day to Jim. And respond the letters from Australian pen pal Tom. Even though we knew that we're never gonna get a reply or have a real foreigner pen pals at that time because of the war, we still wrote countless letters as lihua to our foreigner friends during our school days. Of course, we wrote these letters because of the tests and homework, but when a large number of foreigners entered the Red Notes these days, it feels like after all these years, Lihua has finally received the reply.
This whole cultural shift and joining Red Note has really made me resent how much social media barricades us from one another. And it really got me thinking that a huge reason why I think many people find it hard to be sympathetic towards other people in other countries, try to understand where they're coming from, is because of that zero interaction. I'm not not saying it's right that people don't have sympathy for people in other places, because you should either way regardless, but I kind of can't help but feel like it's by design that we are separated so harshly so that we don't understand each other, and we can continue having these preconceived notions of not seeing that we are alike. And the true irony of all of that is that none of that would have ever happened if it weren't for the US trying to control everything that we do. So I guess I have no choice but to thank the US government for introducing me to Red Note. So conclusively, the US government wants you to think China bad, US good, which is ridiculous because they're both bad. Both of our governments suck, but that's not a reflection on the people who live in it. There is a reason why they don't want us to glean ideas from one another. There's a reason why, you know, at the risk of sounding like I'm in full Joker mode, that they don't want class consciousness. So therefore, I hope that you do not allow this stupid narrative that China's mining all of our data go to your head and let you think that this whole ban that's been temporarily put off again has anything to do other than them wanting to censor us and control things, flip the narrative, if you will. Once again, I hate TikTok, but we simply cannot let this be. It's wrong and it's disturbing and it's disgusting, to be honest. And you know, even though most users are going back to TikTok now that the ban has been lifted, at least for one moment, 1 week, we really had beautiful community feeling. And listen to this, because this is very important. All the controversy, all the fear-mongering, the corrupt society that we live in, there's only one woman whose opinion I value above all else. And that woman is Ratchet B on TikTok.
That's fucking ridiculous when a government can tell you yes or not you can use a fucking app. There's so many fucking apps out there. You people are ridiculous, and tell them what the reasoning behind this shit is.
Bless her fucking heart. And with that, I'll leave you, your FBI agent, your Chinese spy, and probably Mark Zuckerberg lurking around the corner to think about all this. I also wanted to quickly shout out Ahmed Matir's GoFundMe. So far, over $2,000 have been raised, and I just want to help him to get closer to his goal, because he and his family have been devastated by a tremendous amount of loss this year. Since the beginning of the bombings, they have lost 21 family members and have been displaced 6 different times, which has forced them to live in a makeshift tent in Khan Yunis. As you can imagine, their living conditions are beyond difficult. Food is not only scarce, but the little that they can find is overpriced and poor quality. They're also at constant risk of illness due to the lack of clean water, lack of hygiene products. It is just awful. So if you can share this GoFundMe, if you can spread the word, and donate if you can, of course, because obviously they deserve to live peaceful lives with a clean home. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you to my patrons. That's it for now. I'll see you all very soon.
That's fucking ridiculous when a government can tell you yes or not you can use a fucking app. There's so many fucking apps out there. You people are ridiculous, and tell them what the reasoning behind this shit is.